The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Not an unexpected call, but the kind that shifts your world on its axis, even when you think you're prepared. Stage 3 lymphoma. I was just 23, and suddenly, my future felt like a ticking clock in that sterile office. My hands trembled, clutching the medical documents, each page representing thousands of dollars I didn't have. My mother, Sarah, sat beside me, arms crossed. She'd been distant throughout the whole appointment, more focused on her phone than the doctor. When we got to the car, she finally broke the silence. "Mark isn't going to like this." Mark, my stepfather of 8 years, had made it clear from day one that I was an unwelcome burden in his home. My real father had passed away when I was 12, leaving behind a trail of debt and broken promises. Sarah had remarried quickly, desperate for financial stability, and I became, in essence, collateral damage in her new life. "The treatment is expensive," I said quietly, staring at the cost estimates. "But Dr. Rossi said I have a good chance if we start immediately." Sarah pulled out of the parking lot without a word. The silence between us felt heavier than the life-threatening illness growing inside me. Mark was waiting when we arrived home. He stood in the kitchen, a beer in one hand, his face already red with frustration. Sarah must have messaged him during the drive. "Absolutely not," he declared before I could even set down my purse. "I'm not throwing away my retirement fund on someone else's kid." "Mark, please," Sarah started, but her voice lacked any real conviction. "Someone else's kid?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "I've lived here for 8 years. I work full-time and pay rent. I'm asking for help because my life is on the line." He took a step toward me, his eyes chillingly cold. "You're not worth keeping alive. Your mother should have gotten rid of you years ago. You've been nothing but a drain on this household since the day I moved in." The words hit harder than any physical blow ever could. I looked at Sarah, waiting for her to defend me, to show even a flicker of maternal instinct. She just looked away. "Get out of my house," Mark continued. "Figure it out yourself. Go beg at a hospital or find some charity. I don't care. Just stop expecting me to fix your problems." "Mom?" My voice was barely a whisper. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Maybe Mark's right. You're an adult now. You should have savings. You should have been more responsible." Something inside me shattered. Not my spirit, but whatever remaining illusion I'd held about family loyalty, about unconditional affection, about matching to the woman who gave birth to me. I started toward my bedroom to pack, but Mark blocked my path. "Where do you think you're going? You owe me rent through the end of the month." "I just found out I have cancer," I said, disbelief flooding through me. "You're kicking me out and demanding rent?" "A deal's a deal." He crossed his arms, a smug satisfaction spreading across his face. My hands balled into fists. "I paid rent 3 days ago. For the full month. Then you have until October 1st. After that, I want you gone." I pushed past him, a war of rage and desperation churning inside my chest. In my room, I pulled out my laptop and started searching for solutions, clinical trials, payment plans, charity organizations. Anything that might save my life without the help of the two people who should have cared most. The next 3 weeks were brutal. I reached out to extended family, only to discover Mark had already poisoned those relationships. Aunt Brenda hung up after 30 seconds. Uncle Robert sent a text saying he couldn't get involved in family drama. My cousin Jessica blocked my number. Mark had spent years systematically isolating me, spreading rumors that I was entitled and ungrateful. Now, when I needed support most, I found myself completely alone. On September 30th, I packed everything I owned into my aging Honda. Sarah stood in the doorway, watching silently as I loaded boxes. She didn't help, didn't apologize, didn't even say goodbye. Mark emerged as I was loading the last box. "Good riddance," he called out. "Maybe cancer will teach you some humility." I drove away from that house with less than $2,000 in my bank account, no health insurance, and a grave prognosis hanging over my head. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt strangely calm, determined. I slept in my car the first night, parked behind a grocery store. The fear tried to creep in, but I pushed it down. I had bigger problems than discomfort. The next morning, I walked into Mercy General Hospital and asked to speak with a financial counselor. Her name was Emily, and she had kind eyes that welled up as I explained my situation. "You're not the first person to come here desperate," she said gently. "Let me make some calls." Emily connected me with a non-profit organization that specialized in helping uninsured cancer patients. Within a week, I was enrolled in a clinical trial at the university hospital. The treatment was free but experimental. The survival rates were promising, but not guaranteed. I moved into a women's shelter temporarily, using every spare moment to work my job at the marketing firm and research everything I could about my condition. The doctors at the trial were impressed by my determination to understand every aspect of my treatment. Dr. Elena Rossi, my oncologist, became an unexpected advocate. "You're fighting harder than patients with every resource available," she told me after my third chemo session. That counts for something. The treatment was brutal. I lost my hair by week 4. My body ached constantly. Some days I could barely stand, but I showed up to every appointment, logged every symptom, and refused to surrender. During one particularly difficult session, a nurse named Michelle sat with me. "My daughter had lymphoma 5 years ago," she said softly. "She's healthy now, working as a teacher. You remind me of her stubborn streak." "What got her through it?" I asked, my voice thin. "Anger, actually." Michelle smiled sadly. She was angry at the unfairness of getting sick so young. She channeled that anger into survival. I understood that completely. My anger at Mark and Sarah became fuel. Every time I wanted to give up, I pictured Mark's smug face telling me I wasn't worth keeping alive. That image pushed me through the worst moments. The shelter I lived in housed 12 women at a time. Most were escaping domestic violence or struggling with addiction. A few, like me, had simply fallen through society's cracks due to circumstances beyond their control. The woman in the bunk next to mine was named Chloe, a former accountant who'd lost everything after a car accident left her unable to work for 6 months. "You're going to beat this," Chloe told me one night after I'd returned from a particularly grueling chemo session. I'd barely made it to my bunk before collapsing. "I've seen a lot of broken people come through here. You're not broken. You're just bent." Her words stuck with me. Bent, not broken. I repeated that phrase during the darkest hours. When the nausea was so intense I couldn't keep down water. When my bones felt like they were made of glass. When looking in the mirror revealed a gaunt stranger staring back. Work became my anchor to normalcy. My boss, Maria, had been surprisingly understanding when I explained my situation. She adjusted my hours so I could make medical appointments and even let me work remotely on days when I was too unwell to come in. "My brother had leukemia," she'd said simply. "I know what this fight looks like. Just do what you can when you can." The kindness from near strangers highlighted how profoundly my own family had failed me. These people owed me nothing, yet they showed up anyway. Meanwhile, Sarah hadn't called once since I'd left. Mark had probably celebrated my departure like a holiday. Around week 8 of treatment, I started documenting everything. Not just medical records, but a detailed journal of every interaction with Sarah and Mark leading up to my diagnosis. Every dismissive comment, every time Mark had belittled me, every instance where Sarah had chosen his comfort over my well-being. I wrote about the time Mark had thrown away my belongings because they cluttered his space. About how Sarah had given away my grandmother's jewelry to Mark's daughter from his first marriage. About the Christmas when they'd gone on vacation and left me home alone, saying I was old enough to take care of myself while Mark's grown children joined them in Florida. The journal became therapeutic. Dr. Rossi had recommended it as a way to process trauma, but it became something more. It became a record, evidence, a clear timeline of exactly who these people were and what they'd done. My coworker, Ashley, started bringing me homemade meals. "You need to keep your strength up," she'd say, handing me containers of soup or casseroles. "Hospital food is terrible, and I'm betting you're not cooking much." She was right. Most days I survived on crackers and ginger ale, whatever my stomach could tolerate. Her meals made a genuine difference. I gained back some of the weight I'd lost, and my doctors noticed the improvement. "Whatever you're doing differently, keep it up," Dr. Rossi said during a checkup. "Your body is responding better than expected." The clinical trial involved experimental immunotherapy combined with traditional chemotherapy. The side effects were intense, but the results were promising. Other patients in the trial became a strange sort of family. We understood each other's struggles in ways outsiders couldn't. There was David, a 50-year-old construction worker fighting pancreatic cancer. He'd lost his job when he got sick, and his wife had filed for divorce rather than deal with medical bills. We'd sit in the waiting room together, comparing notes on which anti-nausea medications actually worked. "My ex-wife told the judge I was a burden," he once said. "She shouldn't have to sacrifice her future for my illness." Judge gave her the house, the cars, everything. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping in my truck between treatments. His story made me furious on his behalf, but it also reminded me I wasn't alone in experiencing betrayal during a medical crisis. The people who were supposed to love us had revealed their true characters when tested. Then there was Eleanor, a retired teacher in her 60s fighting breast cancer for the second time. Her children had stopped visiting after the first few months, tired of the depressing hospital atmosphere. She spent holidays alone in her small apartment, calling the nurses' station just to hear friendly voices. "People have a tolerance level for suffering," Eleanor explained to me. "Once you exceed it, they start pulling away. Not because they're evil, but because your pain makes them uncomfortable." I thought about that a lot. Was that what had happened with Sarah? Had my cancer simply been too uncomfortable for her to face? Or had she never really loved me at all? Deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't about discomfort. Sarah had always been weak-willed, easily swayed by whoever held the power. When my father was alive, she deferred to him. After his passing, she'd been desperate for someone to take charge. Mark had filled that role, and she'd molded herself to his preferences, even when that meant discarding her own daughter. Month 4 brought a crisis. My counts dropped dangerously low, and I developed an infection that landed me in the hospital for a week. The fever spiked to 104 degrees, and for 2 days I drifted in and out of consciousness. Michelle stayed with me during her breaks, mopping my forehead with cool cloths and adjusting my floor when the machines beeped. I had no family to call, no emergency contacts listed besides the shelter's main number. "You're fighting so hard," Michelle whispered during one of my lucid moments. "Don't you dare give up now." The infection finally broke on day 6. Dr. Rossi explained that this was a known risk of the treatment, that my immune system had been compromised by the aggressive therapy, but we'd caught it in time and I pulled through. When I was released back to the shelter, Chloe had organized a small welcome back. Nothing elaborate, just some balloons and a grocery store cake. But it meant everything. These women, who had so little themselves, had pooled their resources to celebrate my survival. That night, lying in my bunk, I made a promise to myself. If I survived this, I would never forget who had shown up and who had abandoned me. I would never let Sarah or Mark make me doubt my worth again. The work promotion came as a complete surprise. Maria called me into her office during month 5 of treatment, and I braced myself for bad news. Instead, she smiled. "The new company acquiring us has been reviewing all personnel files," she said. "They're particularly interested in employees who show resilience and dedication. Your work hasn't faltered despite everything you're going through. They want to offer you a position in their marketing division with full benefits." I'd stared at her, unable to process the words. Full benefits, health insurance, dental, vision, 401k, the works. The insurance is comprehensive. It would cover your treatment going forward. I'd walked out of her office in a daze. After months of scraping by, of depending on charity and clinical trials, suddenly I had real security. The insurance kicked in within 30 days, and Dr. Rossi immediately adjusted my treatment plan to include some newer, more effective medications that the trial couldn't provide. "This changes everything," she said, genuine excitement in her voice. "We can be more aggressive now. Your prognosis just improved significantly." The shelter had a rule that residents needed to be actively working toward independence. With my new job and insurance, I could finally start saving for an apartment. The social worker helped me create a budget and apply for housing assistance programs. "You're one of our success stories," she told me. "Most people who come through here fighting something like cancer don't make it out. You're going to." Leaving the shelter after 7 months felt surreal. The women threw me a small going-away party, and Chloe helped me move my belongings into a studio apartment across town. It was tiny, barely 400 square feet, but it had a lock on the door and nobody could take it from me. "You did it," Chloe said, looking around the empty space. "You actually did it." We sat on the floor eating takeout, making plans to decorate on a budget. Chloe had secured a job as a bookkeeper and was saving to get her own place. We promised to stay in touch, not to become strangers once we'd moved on from that chapter of our lives. That night, alone in my apartment for the first time, I allowed myself to cry. Not from sadness, but from the sheer relief of having survived the unsurvivable, of having a home again, even if it was small, of having a future that extended beyond the next treatment session. By month 6, my scans showed significant improvement. The tumors were shrinking. Dr. Rossi used words like remarkable response and ahead of schedule. I moved out of the shelter and into a small studio apartment. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I bought furniture from thrift stores and slowly rebuilt a life that actually felt worth living. The apartment became my sanctuary. I painted the walls a soft blue, hung curtains I'd found at a discount store, and gradually filled the space with items that made it feel like home. Ashley helped me find a used couch on an online marketplace, and Chloe gave me a set of dishes her mother had given her. "You need these more than I do," Chloe had insisted. "Besides, they're meant for someone starting fresh." I started cooking again, something I'd barely done during the worst of treatment. Simple meals at first: pasta, scrambled eggs, grilled cheese sandwiches. But each meal represented normalcy, a return to taking care of myself beyond just surviving. Dr. Rossi reduced my treatment schedule as my body continued responding positively. Instead of weekly appointments, I went bi-weekly, then monthly. Each clean skin felt like a small miracle, another step away from the edge of the cliff I'd been balancing on. Work continued to go well. The new company culture valued innovation and dedication, and my ideas for marketing campaigns were gaining attention. My supervisor, a woman named Diane, who'd been with the company for 15 years, took me under her wing. "You have instincts that can't be taught," Diane said after I presented a campaign that resulted in a significant client acquisition. "You understand how to connect with people on an emotional level. That's rare." I thought about her words later that evening. Maybe surviving cancer had changed how I viewed human connection. When you've been stripped down to your most vulnerable state, when you've had to rely on the kindness of strangers while your own family turned away, you develop a different perspective on what matters. Around month 9 of treatment, something unexpected happened. I received a Facebook message from my cousin Jessica, the one who'd blocked my number when I first got sick. "I heard about what Mark and Aunt Sarah did to you," the message read. I didn't know the full story. "He told everyone you were being dramatic about a minor health issue and demanding money. I'm so sorry I didn't reach out." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to maintain the wall I'd built around myself, but another part recognized that Jessica had been deceived, used as a weapon in Mark's campaign to isolate me. "Mark lied about a lot of things," I typed back. I had stage 3 lymphoma. I was without a home during treatment, but I'm in remission now and doing well. Jessica's response came quickly. I can't believe he did that. I can't believe Aunt Sarah let him. Are you okay now? Do you need anything? I'm okay, really, but thank you for asking. We messaged back and forth for over an hour. Jessica explained that Mark had painted me as entitled and manipulative, claiming I'd fabricated or exaggerated health problems for attention. He'd been convincing enough that the extended family had believed him without question. He said you were trying to scam them out of their retirement savings, Jessica told me. That you'd been caught lying about medical bills. The calculated cruelty of it took my breath away. Mark hadn't just abandoned me. He'd systematically destroyed my support network to ensure I had nowhere to turn. He'd wanted me to fail, to disappear quietly without bothering him again. I have all the medical records, I said. Every bill, every treatment summary, every scan. If you want proof. I believe you, Jessica replied. I should have believed you from the start. I should have called to hear your side before cutting you off. That conversation opened a door I thought permanently closed. Jessica reached out to other family members, sharing the truth about what had happened. Some apologized. Others made excuses or maintained that they didn't want to get involved in drama. Uncle Robert called me directly. I'm sorry, he said, his voice heavy with regret. Mark was my brother-in-law and I trusted him. I should have known he was capable of this kind of manipulation. He was always a controller. Did you know Mom just let it happen? I asked. That she watched him throw me out while I was in a critical state? Robert was quiet for a moment. Sarah has always been weak. Even when your father was alive, she let people make decisions for her. I'd hoped she'd be stronger for you, but I guess old patterns die hard. His words confirmed what I'd always known but had been afraid to acknowledge. My mother wasn't a victim of Mark's control. She was a willing participant, someone who'd rather let others dictate her life than take responsibility for her own choices. The revelations about Mark's lies spread through the family like wildfire. Aunt Brenda, who'd been housing Sarah, apparently confronted her about the truth. According to Jessica, Brenda had been furious to learn that Sarah had abandoned me during cancer treatment. Brenda told your mom she raised her better than that, Jessica reported. She said Sarah made her sick. I felt a grim satisfaction hearing this, though I knew it didn't change anything fundamental. The damage had been done. The betrayal had happened. Learning that others disapproved didn't undo the months I'd spent alone and terrified. My dating life had been non-existent during treatment, understandably. But as I approached the 1-year mark of remission, I started accepting invitations to social events. Ashley set me up on a blind date with her husband's coworker, a software engineer named Ethan. Ethan was kind and patient when I explained my medical history on our second date. My mom's a breast cancer survivor, he said. I know how hard treatment is, not just physically, but emotionally. The fact that you got through it alone makes you pretty incredible. We took things slowly, and he never pressured me to move faster than I was comfortable with. He met Chloe and Ashley, attended a fundraising walk I participated in for cancer research, and showed up consistently in ways I'd learned not to expect from people. You've been hurt, he observed after we'd been dating for 3 months. I can see it in how you flinch when I offer to help with things, like you're waiting for conditions to be attached. He was right. I'd learned to be suspicious of kindness, to look for hidden motives behind every offer of assistance. Mark and Sarah had taught me that affection came with strings, that support was transactional. I'm working on it, I told him honestly. Therapy helps. But yeah, I'm still learning to trust that people can be good without wanting something in return. Take your time, Ethan said. I'm not going anywhere. Therapy had started 6 months after my diagnosis, offered through a cancer support organization. My therapist, Dr. Sofia Vargas, specialized in trauma related to family estrangement and medical crisis. What you experienced is a form of abandonment trauma, she explained in one of our early sessions. Your mother and stepfather betrayed you during the most vulnerable moment of your life. That's not something you just get over. Dr. Vargas helped me understand that healing wasn't linear. Some days I felt strong and independent, proud of everything I'd overcome. Other days, the hurt surfaced unexpectedly, seeing a mother and daughter shopping together, hearing someone mention family support during illness, watching a commercial about parents caring for children facing illness. The grief isn't just about what you lost, Dr. Vargas said. It's about what you never really had to begin with. You're mourning the mother you deserved but didn't get. Those words unlocked something in me. I'd spent so much energy being angry at Sarah for her betrayal during my illness that I hadn't processed the deeper truth. She'd never been the mother I needed, even before cancer. The diagnosis had simply revealed a fundamental deficiency that had always existed. Throughout all of this, Sarah called exactly once. I was 7 months into treatment, finally starting to feel almost human again. "Sweetheart, how are you?" Her voice sounded strained. "Alive," I said flatly. "No thanks to you." "That's not fair. You don't understand how difficult things have been." "Difficult for you?" My voice rose. I had cancer. I was without a home. I did this completely alone because you chose your husband over your gravely ill daughter. Mark said it would be enabling you. That you needed to learn independence. Mark said I wasn't worth keeping alive. You stood there and agreed with him. Silence stretched between us. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "Things with Mark are complicated right now. He's been stressed about money." "Is that why you're calling? You need something?" I was hoping we could talk about helping with some expenses. Mark's business is struggling, and we're behind on the mortgage. The audacity nearly knocked me breathless. "You want me to help you financially after you let me drive away to face my fate alone? Don't be dramatic. You're clearly fine now." I hung up. She tried calling back 3 times. I blocked her number. 2 months later, I was officially in remission. Dr. Rossi showed me the scans with genuine joy. "You beat it," she said. "Against considerable odds, you actually beat it." I celebrated quietly that night in my apartment, eating takeout and watching movies. No family to share the victory with. No mother crying tears of relief. Just me and the satisfaction of surviving despite everything. My career flourished over the next year. The company promoted me twice. I moved into a better apartment, started building savings, and even began dating someone kind who didn't make me feel like a burden. I hadn't thought about Sarah or Mark in months when the email arrived. It came from a law firm, addressed to me, with a subject line that read "Estate of Mark Brennan." My hands shook as I opened it. Mark had passed away from a heart attack 3 weeks earlier. The email explained that my mother was facing significant financial difficulties. Mark's business had collapsed, leaving behind substantial debts. They'd lost the house. Sarah was apparently living with Aunt Brenda and working part-time at a grocery store. The lawyer explained that my mother had given him my contact information, hoping I might be willing to help with funeral expenses they couldn't afford. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me felt satisfaction at Mark's passing. Another part felt absolutely nothing at all. But the request for money stirred something dark inside me. I composed a careful response. "Thank you for reaching out. While I'm sorry to hear about Mark's passing, I'm unable to provide financial assistance. Please remind my mother that Mark once told me I wasn't worth keeping alive when I needed medical help. He and my mother forced me to face cancer without a home and alone. I'm sure they can handle funeral arrangements with the same compassion and support they showed me during my treatment. Best of luck with their situation." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The lawyer responded the next day with a brief acknowledgement. But 3 days later, I received a call from Aunt Brenda. "How dare you refuse to help your mother?" She started immediately. "After everything she did for you growing up, everything she did, she chose her husband over her gravely ill daughter." "Did she mention that part?" "Sarah said you were exaggerating about the cancer, that you were being overdramatic." I nearly perished. I was without a home. I survived because of strangers who showed me more kindness than my own mother. Well, regardless, she needs help now. Mark left her with nothing. "That sounds like a personal problem," I said calmly. "Mark made his choices. Mom made hers. Now they get to live with the consequences." "You've become cruel," Aunt Brenda said. "No, I've become someone who refuses to set myself on fire to keep people warm who wouldn't offer me a match when I was freezing." She hung up. I blocked her number too. Months passed quietly. I focused on work, maintained my health checkups, and built relationships with people who actually valued me. My life wasn't perfect, but it was authentically mine. Then my mother showed up at my apartment building. I came home from work one evening to find her sitting on the steps leading to the entrance. She looked older than I remembered, worn down by stress and hardship. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered her face in the car after my diagnosis. The way she'd looked away when Mark told me I wasn't worth saving. "What do you want?" I asked, stopping several feet away. "Please just let me explain," she started, standing up. "I know I made mistakes, but I'm your mother. Doesn't that count for something? You stopped being my mother the day you chose Mark over me. Being biologically related doesn't entitle you to anything. I'm losing everything. Brenda kicked me out. I have nowhere to go." "There are shelters," I said coldly. "I know, because I lived in one while going through chemotherapy. The one on Riverside Street is decent." Her face crumpled. "You can't mean that. I'm your mother. My mother would have fought for me. My mother would have chosen her daughter over a man who called me worthless. You're just the woman who gave birth to me and then abandoned me when it mattered most." "I was scared," she whispered. "Mark controlled everything. The money, the house, everything. I thought if I stood up to him, I'd lose it all. So, you sacrificed me instead. And now you've lost it all anyway. How's that working out?" She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Please, I'll do anything. I'll apologize 1,000 times. Just don't leave me out here alone. The way you left me alone with cancer and no home. That kind of alone. You made a mistake. You made a choice." My voice stayed steady despite the emotions churning inside. "You chose comfort over your daughter. You chose financial security over my life. Those weren't mistakes. Those were deliberate decisions." "What do you want from me?" she cried. "You want me to suffer? I don't want anything from you. I don't want your suffering or your apologies. I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You taught me that lesson. Now you're learning it, too. So, you're just going to walk away? Let me be without a home?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a saved document. "Here's a list of resources, shelters, food banks, organizations that help people in financial crisis. The same list Emily at Mercy General gave me when I was desperate. Everything you need to survive is there. Whether you actually use it is up to you." I texted her the document and moved toward my building entrance. "This is cruel," she called after me. "You're being deliberately cruel." I turned back one last time. "No, Mom. Cruel is telling your daughter with cancer that she isn't worth saving. Cruel is watching your husband throw her out on the street while she's facing a life-threatening illness. This is just matching the energy you gave me when I needed you most. I walked into my building and didn't look back. Through the glass door, I could see her standing there, staring at her phone. Maybe reading through the resources, maybe just shocked that I'd actually turned her away. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. That night, I did something I hadn't done in over 2 years. I pulled out the folder for my cancer diagnosis. All the paperwork, the cost estimates, the terrifying numbers that had represented my potential terminal prognosis. I looked at the medical bills I'd eventually paid off through payment plans and my new insurance. Over $300,000 total. Every cent earned and paid by me. Not $1 from the people who should have helped. I thought about Mark's final words to me. You're not worth keeping alive. But I kept myself alive. Despite everything, I'd survived and built a life worth living. A life better than anything I'd had under their roof. The next morning, I donated $5,000 to the nonprofit organization that had helped me access treatment. I earmarked it specifically for young adults facing cancer without family support. If my mother wanted to see that as cruel, so be it. I was done living my life for her approval or her comfort. 2 weeks later, I received one final email from her. The subject line read, "I understand now." The message was brief. "I saw what you donated to the cancer charity. Aunt Brenda showed me the article they wrote about you. I never realized how close you came to perishing. How alone you really were. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand why you can't help me. I made my choice. You're making yours. I hope you have a good life." I read it 3 times, looking for manipulation or a hidden request for money. But it seemed genuine. Final. I never responded. Mark had been right about one thing. I wasn't worth keeping alive to them. But I discovered I was worth it to myself. That was the only opinion that truly mattered. 3 years later, I'm 30 and thriving. Still cancer-free. Promoted to director at my company, engaged to someone who thinks I hung the moon. I own my apartment now, a real piece of stability that nobody can take from me. Sometimes I wonder what happened to Sarah, if she found her footing, or if she's still struggling. But those thoughts come less frequently now, and they don't carry the weight they once did. I learned an important lesson through all of that darkness. Family isn't determined by blood. It's determined by who shows up when you're at your lowest. By who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. My mother and Mark failed that test spectacularly. But Emily at the hospital, Dr. Rossi, Michelle the nurse, even my manager, Maria, they all passed it without hesitation. The day I went into remission, Dr. Rossi told me something I'll never forget. "You didn't just survive cancer," she said. "You survived everything around it, too. That takes a different kind of strength." She was right. Beating the disease was only half the battle. Beating the betrayal, the abandonment, the cruelty of the people who should have loved me most, that was its own kind of victory. I don't know if my mother genuinely regrets her choices or if she just regrets their consequences. Honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. Her journey is her own now. As for me, I'm living proof that you don't need the people who gave you life to build one worth living. Sometimes the family you find matters more than the one you're born into. And sometimes the best revenge isn't something you orchestrate or plan. Sometimes it's just living well despite every attempt to destroy you. It's succeeding where they predicted you'd fail. It's thriving in the space where they expected you to wither and disappear. My stepfather said I wasn't worth keeping alive. Every day I wake up healthy and happy is proof that he was catastrophically wrong. What's the toughest lesson you've ever had to learn about family?